General Holder, thank you for being here. I'd like to talk to you about abuse of power and the integrity of the Department of Justice. 8 months ago, the Inspector General at the Department of Treasury concluded that the IRS had improperly targeted conservative citizen groups, Tea Party groups, pro-Israel groups, pro-life groups. The day that was made public, President Obama described what had occurred as, quote, intolerable and inexcusable. And he said, Americans have a right to be angry about it, and I'm angry about it. Likewise, that same day, you said the IRS's targeting of conservative citizens groups was, quote, outrageous and unacceptable. That was 8 months ago. In the 8 months that have transpired, Lois Lerner, the head of the office that targeted conservatives improperly, has gone before Congress and pleaded the Fifth, which, as you know, means she raised her hand and said, if I testify, I may incriminate myself in criminal conduct. For a senior government official to plead the Fifth is a major occurrence. In the 280 days since that Inspector General report, nobody has been indicted, not a single person. In the 280 days since that Inspector General report, it's been publicly reported that no indictments are planned. Today in this hearing, you were unwilling to answer a question whether even a single victim of the targeting has been interviewed in the 280 days that have transpired. And most astonishingly, it has now been publicly reported that the lead lawyer heading the investigation was, number one, appointed from the Civil Rights Division, which has historically been the most politically charged division in the Department of Justice. And even more astonishingly, is a major Democratic donor and donor to President Obama. Indeed, between 2004 and 2012, she has personally given $6,750 to President Obama and the Democratic Party. I must tell you, I find it astonishing that the Department of Justice appointed a major Obama donor to head this investigation. So the first question I want to ask is, did you know that the lawyer in charge of this investigation was a major Obama donor?
Well, first off, the characterization of this lawyer as the lead lawyer on the case, I think, is not correct. This is an investigation being done by the Civil Rights Division as well as by the Criminal Division of the Justice Department. And if I had to assign a lead in this, I would say that the Criminal Division, the Public Integrity Section, has actually got the lead. It's also involving the FBI as well as the Inspector General from the Treasury Department.
General Holder, with all respect, you did not answer the question I asked, which is, did you know that this lawyer was a major Obama donor?
No, I don't know anything about the political activities of any of the people who are involved in this investigation.
Now, previously, when you were asked about this, you made a reference to the fact that she has a First Amendment right to be involved in politics, and that's surely right. No one's talking about restraining her First Amendment right to be involved in politics. But the Department of Justice Ethics Guidelines says that if a lawyer, quote, believes your impartiality might be questioned, you must either disqualify yourself or see the ethics officer. And indeed, it goes on to say, in a case where your impartiality might be questioned, you may obtain a formal opinion that the department's interest in your participation in this matter outweighs the concern that the integrity of the department's operation would be questioned. Now, I have to tell you, the fact that a major Obama donor is playing this leadership role has resulted in the integrity of the department being questioned. Is it your position that out of the 117,000 employees at the Department of Justice, the only lawyer available to head this investigation was a major Obama donor?
Well, first we got 112,000 people, but beyond that, the people who are assigned to this case these assignments were done by career people within the department. to make sure that the best people with the greatest amount of experience would handle this matter. Your repeated reference to her as the lead lawyer, as I said, I think is not borne out by the role she's actually playing. I don't have any basis to believe that the people who are engaged in this investigation are doing so in a way other than investigations are normally done. That is by looking at the facts, applying the law to those facts, and reaching the appropriate conclusions. I don't have any basis to believe that anything other than that is occurring.
Well, I will say a lot of American citizens have a basis to believe it, given that 280 days have passed, no one's been indicted. 280 days have passed, and many, if not all, of the victims have not even been interviewed. 280 days have passed, and apparently the anger and outrage that both the President and you expressed has utterly disappeared. Indeed, last night in the State of the Union address, the President did not so much as mention the words IRS. So that anger and outrage sees very little manifestation in actual action. Now, I would also point out—
I would hope that the President would not discuss an ongoing investigation. I don't know if you've ever conducted an investigation, Senator, but the fact that it's taken, and I'll just take you at your word, 280 days, is not unusual for complex investigations. We want to make sure that what we do is comprehensive and that at the end of the day we get it right.
Well, many of the victims have not—
things on a short basis. I ask people simply to do them right. And
many of the victims have not been interviewed. Has the investigation examined the meetings between the head of the IRS and White House political operatives to determine the degree of political influence that was exercised from the White House over this political targeting?
As I said to, I think it was maybe Senator Graham, I'm not going to discuss an ongoing investigation and what steps have been taken in connection with that investigation. And that is not something I'm only doing for this inquiry. This would be an answer you would get from me for any investigation that the Justice Department was involved in. It is not appropriate for an Attorney General or any Justice Department person to discuss an ongoing criminal investigation. That's just—
Has any investigation been done about whether individual donors to Governor Romney have been audited and targeted by the IRS at a greater rate than donors to President Obama? I will tell you, as I travel the country, I have heard from dozens of financial supporters for Governor Romney who told me that they had never been audited in their life. And within a week, a month of it becoming public that they were raising money for Mitt Romney, they discovered they were being audited. Now, those are anecdotal stories, but it would be relatively simple to examine the prosecution rates of Obama donors versus Romney donors. And if there were a sharp differential, if it were the case that Romney donors were being audited at a much higher frequency, that would raise substantial basis to investigate further. Has the investigation inquired as to that?
Senator, I will say, I'll give you the same response to the questions that you're asking that are in many ways very similar. I am not going to discuss what we have done in an ongoing investigation. This is a matter that is presently being investigated. Interviews are being done, analysis is being conducted, and it would be inappropriate for me to talk about the matter in the way that you have asked.
Well, my time has expired, but let me say this in conclusion, which is I sent you last week a letter laying out this record, laying out the abuse of power, laying out the obvious conflict of interest. In my view, the integrity of the Department of Justice has been severely compromised. Predecessors of yours in both parties, Democrat and Republican, when faced with serious charges of abuse of power for partisan gain, have made the right decision and appointed special prosecutors. Elliot Richardson appointed Archibald Cox to investigate allegations of President Nixon's abuse of power. No one would have trusted John Mitchell to investigate Richard Nixon. Likewise, Janet Reno appointed Robert Fisk to investigate allegations against President Clinton. I would call upon you to carry out the tradition of independence that attorneys general have honored that office with for centuries and protect the integrity of the Department of Justice, given the political sensitivities, given the fact that individual citizens believe they are being persecuted by the federal government for partisan reasons. It would further justice and further the integrity of the Department of Justice for you to appoint a special prosecutor with a meaningful degree of independence to investigate and find out what happened. And I would suggest that any special prosecutor should have integrity beyond reproach and not be a major Obama donor.
Well, let me just say this. The statute, a lot of what Attorney General Reno did with regard to the appointment of independent counsels was pursuant to a statute that no longer exists. The regulations that now exist were put in place under my supervision when I was the Deputy Attorney General in the Clinton administration. And so I'm familiar with both the regulation and when it ought to be applied. I don't think that there is a basis for us to conclude on the information as it presently exists that there is any reason for the appointment of an independent counsel. I have faith in the career people who are handling this matter to do so in a way that is free of any kind of partisan or ideological tint, and to come to an assessment of the facts and the law based only on the facts and on the law. And the notion that somehow this has caused a loss of faith in this Justice Department, I think is inconsistent with facts.
All right, Senator Cruz.